Hi everyone, it's Wednesday, it's 9 o'clock, it's time for the Pam Chat. I know you guys are getting a little frustrated because the Pam Chat kind of moves around, and I just got to be honest with you. My schedule is really crazy these days, and so I tried to do the Pam Chat on Wednesdays, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. And 9 o'clock is when Rachel Maddow's doing her thing, so for those of you who are watching Rachel instead of watching me, I get it, but you can watch this later. I have lots of things to talk about today, and of course there's been so much going on in our country. But essentially the theme of this Pam Chat is about hypocrisy and how it plays in our current politics. Now, before I do anything else, I want to encourage each and every one of you to please donate what you can to the relief efforts in Houston. I've done that a couple different ways. I saw something on Facebook, I donated there. JJ Watt is doing something through Twitter, and I donated there. I don't have a ton of money, but I did what I could, and I certainly will plan on continuing to do a little more. Here's the thing that we need to understand about the relief efforts in Houston is that saving people now is actually the easier part. The harder part is going to be keeping these people healthy and alive while they are homeless, without medication, without food, without shelter, for days or weeks or months on end. That's the bigger issue here, is that most of these houses are now not salvageable. Some of them have been inundated with water for so long that their foundations are no longer solid. Certainly everything within them is destroyed. Mold is probably setting in. Many of these people do not have flood insurance, and so their homeowner's insurance is not going to recover the rebuild. So we can expect that there are going to be literally hundreds of thousands of people who have non-habitable homes are going to be needing great amount of assistance to get back on their feet. And that is a truism that we learned after Hurricane Katrina and Hurricane Sandy, and certainly it's going to affect the victims of Hurricane Harvey, not just in Texas, but Louisiana and everywhere else that got flooded. And I want to talk about that reality because there's some people who don't seem to comprehend that. And I'm speaking most specifically to my Republican brothers and sisters here. Guys, it is time that you take stock of a couple realities. Number one, it's going to take billions of dollars to rebuild Houston, and not just the homes, but the infrastructure, the hospitals, all of the roads and everything else. Everything is going to need some kind of structural attention, which is going to cost billions and billions of dollars. Now, here is the reality to my budget hawks. We don't have the money to do that. We're going to have to borrow to do that, while we're borrowing to be in Afghanistan, and we're borrowing to do a lot of other things. Now, in that circumstance, you want to cut taxes. That means cutting revenue while wanting to build a multi-billion-dollar wall. Guys, that is not happening. It's not happening. You are not getting the money to build your stupid wall. I want you to try to marinate on that. Think on it. Ponder it. Meditate upon the reality that you're not getting your stupid wall. You're not getting it. It's not happening. Get real with that. Get comfortable with it, because the taxpayers of the United States of America will not support your stupid wall. That ain't happening. It's just something you need to get comfortable with, right? You're not getting your wall. You're probably not going to get your tax cuts either. I'm just putting this out there because it's going to take some time for y'all to marinate on this. You're not getting your damn tax cuts, because there's too much spending going on right now. And if you want to spend profitably while trying to cut taxes, you're going to put us exactly where George W. Bush put us in, back in the early 2000s. So we're not going back there. That lesson has been learned by those of us who were paying attention. When you cut revenue and you increase spending, you create massive deficits and economic downturns. We don't want that. That lesson has been taught, and those of us who are paying attention have learned it. So no, if you are going to cut taxes, and you're going to have to dramatically cut spending, which means no damn wall, probably means no troop surge in Afghanistan, or if you're going to increase spending, you're going to have to increase revenue, or at least maintain revenue. That's the simple math. There is no other math. There is no trickle-down math. There is no voodoo economics. It's very simple. Increase revenue if you're going to increase spending, or decrease revenue and decrease spending. That's the only thing that makes sense. Now, we don't have the option of decreasing spending at this time because Houston has to be completely rebuilt. We're not going to have that option. You're going to start to see the kinds of infrastructure and investment that you're going to have to make. We have chemical plants. We have gas refining plants that have to be rebuilt, and nobody has this money. So it's going to come from the taxpayers, which means you are not going to have enough money in the treasury to cut taxes. That ain't happening. So this is the reality, and I want you guys to sit and think on, ponder it. Ponder it. That is the reality. No wall, no tax cuts. Not happening. Okay? Now, if it is true, and I know it is, that you are not getting your damn wall and you are not getting your taxes, then the question must be at this juncture, what is in it for us to keep Donald Trump as president? And I'm speaking very specifically to my GOP brothers and sisters, because the rest of us have already decided he's a numbnut. If he's not there to sign off on your tax cuts, and he's not there to get you your stupid wall, then the question is, what is he there for but for to dismantle your party, create internal fights, and embarrass you? Be an anchor around your neck when the 2018 elections come rolling around. You see, I think smart Republicans, and there are many, right? There are smart Republicans out there that probably ought to be thinking right now, you know, this Trump experiment isn't worth the risk anymore. We're over it. We need to move on. The whole country's ready for you to do so. We'll even help you do it. But, dear GOP, you are now officially in an intractable situation where you're not going to get what you want. It's not going to happen. It cannot happen. The math does not work for it to happen. Therefore, you should come to peace with it, think strategically, and move on. Now, I am not a big fan of Mike Pence. Everybody knows that. But Mike Pence at least has some modicum of restraint. He doesn't use Twitter like an atomic bomb. He's not, so reactionary and uncontrollable that we have no idea what he's going to do next. I have a feeling that Mike Pence may be caught up in this Mueller investigation. I think that he may be as deeply involved and complicit as many of the other people on Team Trump. But I'm willing to let that process play itself out. In the meantime, let's get rid of the clown in the White House. I think it's important that we start talking about that in a very serious way. Now, I want to talk a little bit about today's topic, which is hypocrisy. And the reason I want to talk about it is because we've seen manifest examples of hypocrisy over these past few days. But before I get to the manifest demonstrations of hypocrisy, I would like to spend a moment to recognize the manifest demonstrations of patriotism that we have seen these past few days. We have seen people, ordinary people, regular people, step up in a way that makes me so proud. It's the one thing that continues to give me hope for this country, is that when push comes to shove, we have each other's back. That was demonstrated by people with no money, no resources. They went out, they took care of their neighbors. People are still rescuing neighbors, rescuing pets, going back and feeding people, opening their homes, their businesses to people. This is the very best. This is the essence of patriotism. It's not loving America, it's loving Americans in the best way that you can. So shout out to all of the people in Houston, in Louisiana, anywhere they're coming from, who are helping their fellow Americans out of the goodness of their heart, who are willing to give what they have. That is who we are. That is our best nature. That is a demonstration of patriotism. And I am just incredibly proud of that. It's the thing that gives me hope for our future. But while we saw demonstrations of the very best of us, we also saw quite some demonstrable evidence of the worst of us, and what I would like to call my topic for the day, hypocrisy. Now, I'm not just talking about Joel Osteen. Joel's, yes, it's true that he's been raked over the coals on Twitter because he didn't open his mega church to those who needed it. And his answer was, well, nobody asked. And I was like, that is not the spirit of generosity that you ought to have as a person who preaches the good news and the gospel of Jesus Christ. You ought not have to be asked to do that which is manifestly obvious needing to be done. You had so many resources available to you. Why would you have to wait to be asked? I think that's just a terrible excuse. But what really Joel Osteen demonstrated was, I think, something very, very important. And I want to put this in context. I'm gonna expand this discussion a little bit because I think it's an important point. You see, many of my conservative brothers and sisters have made the case that they don't like it when their taxes are used to help the poor, the infirm, the ill, the elderly, that all of those sort of charitable, taking care of one another responsibilities should be put on charities and churches, that that's really what they're there for, and that government should play no role in taking care of people. And this is a meme in the GOP. If you go to Republican websites, you will see this. You will see many Republican candidates talk about this, and politicians talk about how one of their core principles is that government should stay out of people's lives and shouldn't take care of people, and that should be what charities do, and that nobody should be forced to have their tax dollars take care of other Americans, that everybody should take care of themselves. And what I want to mention and point out is that we saw what happens when taking care of the needy is left to churches and charitable organizations. Now, sometimes they come through. Hallelujah, when they do. Sometimes they don't. And what happens to the people in need when they don't? I heard somebody talk about why they feel like people who are on food stamps and who are on welfare should not get government benefits anymore, but that this should all be taken up by our charitable organizations. And just as a matter of data, just as a matter of fact, if you combined all of the charitable giving of the United States and combined it, it still wouldn't become anywhere near what we put out in food stamps and services to the poor. So the question is, okay, well, let's just talk this through. Exactly how would that work? I'm curious. For those people out there who think that the poor should just go to their charitable giving neighbors or to their local churches, exactly how would that work? Would a poor person go up to your neighborhood, knock on your door and ask to eat? What happens if you're not there? Or what happens if you're not in a giving mood? What happens if a charity says we don't serve gay people? Or what happens if a charity says we didn't get enough this month, so you get to starve? See, when we make survival something that is the largesse, it's based on the kindness, the mood, the attitude, whether Mars is in the 7th house and Venus is rising, people end up starving. I think I want to get to the kernel of this, which is the essence of it, which is to say, I don't want my money helping you. Whoever you are. You the poor, you the infirm, you the minorities, you the people who need public education, you the people in my neighborhood. I don't want my money helping you. I'd rather keep it myself and give to whatever I want to give to based on my discretion. And that is the new greed. That is the new selfishness. It's repackaged as conservative values. It's repackaged as being independent and not depending on government. But here's the reality that we've learned this week, is that while it may be your tax dollars who help others today, it could just as easily be their tax dollars who help you tomorrow, right? It could just as easily be that they need to come to your rescue at some point because of a natural disaster or because you become incredibly ill, you lose your job, something bad happens to you or your family. I think it's a wonderful thing that my tax dollars help my fellow Americans to succeed and function. I consider myself immensely blessed to be in a financial situation where I get taxed to help my fellow Americans, and no purpose could make me happier than my tax dollars going to educate people, and my tax dollars helping the elderly, and my tax dollars helping the poor, and my tax dollars helping the infirm, nothing makes me happier. Because not only do they get to survive, but it is indicative that I've done well enough that I can help them survive. That's a beautiful thing, not a terrible thing. That's a beautiful thing. And here's the funny thing. Someday, it's going to be somebody else's tax dollars who might help me to survive. And that's what it means to be in this together. That we are each other's keeper. I mean, that's a biblical teaching. We are each other's keeper. But more importantly, as a robust, successful economy, we have more than enough for everybody to be okay. If we decide that that's something we want. That's not socialism. That's patriotism. And it's also really smart economics. You know why? Because when people have enough to eat and they have health care and they're educated, they're able to go out and work. And when they work, they make stuff. And when they make stuff, we buy stuff. Those who make stuff get wages and they buy stuff. And then when we need to buy stuff, we have somebody to buy it from. And then we have jobs. Everybody's got jobs. Everybody's buying stuff and everybody's making stuff. That is when our economy works the best. When we take care of each other. From the cradle to the grave. That is when we work best. When each of us have what we need to function, survive, and have a little few dollars to spend in the economy. It isn't when the few hoard the biggest amounts of money they can get their hands on. That's not when our economy succeeds. I'm sorry, but I am not feeling this notion that the richest amongst us are in dire need of relief. That's nonsense. I understand that they feel that life is terribly unfair when the Maserati doesn't have the Ferrari next to it. It gets lonely. But I'm sorry. In today's day and age, in this reality that we are dealing with right now, they're just going to have to get used to the fact that they're going to have to get around on just one Ferrari this week. Because Houston needs to be rebuilt. And Port Arthur needs to be rebuilt. And it is our duty and our obligation as Americans, whether we're Texans or Southerners or Republicans or Democrats, it is our duty as Americans to back up our brothers and sisters in Texas and to have their best interests in our hearts. Because it may be Texas today. It could easily be Florida tomorrow. Heck, it could be North Carolina or New York next week. It could be California the week after that. We are in this together. And our tax dollars will go first and foremost to backing up our brothers and sisters in Texas before it ever goes to backing up our billionaires who feel like life is unfair to them, or to building a stupid wall that has absolutely no purpose. That's my message for today. God bless. Pray for Houston. Keep donating. And if you have a few extra dollars, donate to me at electpamkeith.com. Good night.